Welcome to Think on This, a space for quiet reflection, inspired by the insights of Jiddu Krishnamurti. We share new talks every fortnight, not to give answers, but to see more clearly. Let's begin. Imagine for a moment that we are sitting together, not as teacher and student, not as believer and skeptic, but simply as two human beings facing the same mystery. We are surrounded by noise, religions telling us what to believe, scientists telling us what to measure, politicians telling us what to fear. But beyond all of that, there is a simple question that has haunted humanity for thousands of years. What is God? What is truth? Krishnamurti once said, quote, "The man who says he knows does not know. The man who is experiencing reality from moment to moment has no means of communicating that reality." End of quote. That statement is unsettling, isn't it? Because most of us have grown up with people confidently telling us what God is, what truth is, and what path we must follow to reach it. Yet here is Krishnamurti saying, the moment someone claims to know, they have already lost touch with the real. Let's pause here. If reality cannot be packaged in words or captured in belief, then what are we doing when we say, "I believe in God," or "I don't believe in God"? Are we touching reality, or are we simply projecting our own fears and hopes onto the unknown? Think of it like looking at the sky through a stained glass window. If the glass is tinted red, the whole sky looks red. If it's blue, the sky looks blue. The sky itself doesn't change, but our lens does. Belief is that stained glass. We don't actually see what is there. We only see our projection, colored by our culture, our upbringing, our fears, and our desires. Krishnamurti was blunt. Quote, "Belief is a denial of truth. Belief hinders truth. To believe in God is not to find God." End of quote. That strikes directly against how most of us have been conditioned. We think belief is noble, that it gives life meaning, that it connects us to the divine. But Krishnamurti turns the whole thing on its head. He says belief, whether in God or against God, is a barrier. It blocks the direct encounter with what is real. Now you might be wondering, but what's wrong with belief if it gives people hope, consolation, and comfort? Isn't that good enough? Isn't belief a step toward a better life? This is where Krishnamurti cuts deeper. He points out that while belief may comfort us, it rarely transforms us. Look at the world. Millions upon millions profess belief in God, yet we still exploit, still divide, still go to war. Krishnamurti says, quote, "You believe and exploit, you believe and kill. You believe in a universal God and murder each other." End of quote. The words are sharp because the reality is sharp. If belief were enough, would the world look the way it does today? Consider history. The men who dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima said that God was with them. Pilots flying from England to bomb Germany said God was their co-pilot. Politicians, generals, dictators, many of them invoked God. And yet, what did their actions bring? Devastation, not compassion. Death, not renewal. So belief, Krishnamurti says, has very little significance in itself, because belief can easily coexist with cruelty, with exploitation, with division. A rich man can ruthlessly exploit workers, accumulate wealth, and then build a temple in God's name. Does his belief sanctify his exploitation? Of course not. Let's be honest. Most of us believe not because we have touched the sacred, but because belief makes life a little easier to bear. It gives us hope, meaning, a sense that suffering has a purpose. But if you look closely, isn't this still self-centered? Belief becomes a kind of psychological comfort blanket. And Krishnamurti challenges us. Is comfort the same as truth? Or is it simply a way of escaping from our monotonous, painful, and often cruel lives? Now, some of you may object. You might say, but belief in God gives me strength to live better, to be kinder, to improve myself. That sounds noble. But Krishnamurti asks, why do you need an incentive to live rightly? Shouldn't the fact that we are human beings living together on this earth be reason enough? If your kindness depends on the promise of heaven or the fear of hell, is it really kindness? Or is it still a subtle form of self-interest? This is uncomfortable to face, but necessary. Because if your incentive is different from mine, then we will quarrel over the incentive. You want heaven in one form, I want heaven in another, and soon we are divided. But if we live simply and intelligently, not because of belief, but because we see the beauty of living that way, then perhaps there is harmony. Krishnamurti makes it clear, quote, what leads to a better life is intelligence, and there cannot be intelligence if there is belief, if there are class divisions, if the means of production are in the hands of a few, if there are isolated nationalities and sovereign governments. End of quote. He's pointing to something radical. Intelligence, not belief, is the foundation of transformation. Intelligence here doesn't mean IQ or cleverness. It means the clarity of seeing things as they are, without the distortion of prejudice or dogma. So then, what is reality? What is God? Here Krishnamurti takes us beyond argument. He reminds us, God is not the Word is not the thing. To touch the immeasurable, the mind must be free of time. That means free of thought, free of ideas about God. Because what do we really know about God? Mostly second-hand stories, scriptures, traditions, or perhaps vague moments of our own longing. But is that the real or just echoes of our conditioning? This is difficult because the mind is always moving, always projecting, always clinging to its own images. To truly see, Krishnamurti says, the mind must be silent, not forced into silence, not disciplined into silence, but naturally quiet. Think of it like a pond. If the pond is stirred by wind or by stones being thrown into it, its surface is rippled, and you cannot see the reflection of the sky. But when the pond is still, completely still, the reflection appears effortlessly. Silence of the mind is like that. It is not manufactured, not forced. It comes when you understand the whole movement of thought and see its limits. This is where many people misunderstand. They think meditation means controlling the mind, disciplining it into quietness, repeating mantras until thoughts fade. But Krishnamurti insists, a mind forced into stillness is not a still mind. It is merely suppressed. True stillness comes when you have understood the nature of thought, and in that understanding, thought naturally falls quiet. When the mind is quiet, not on the surface only, but deeply, through and through, then the unknown can come into being. That unknown is not something you can experience in the ordinary sense, because experience implies a memory, an experiencer. If you experience God, you have already reduced it to something known, something shaped by your past. But reality, the sacred, the eternal, is beyond time, beyond memory. So Krishnamurti says, quote, silence is freedom from the past, from knowledge, from both conscious and unconscious memory. When the mind is completely silent, not in use, when there is the silence which is not a product of effort, then only does the timeless, the eternal, come into being. End of quote. This is not something to be believed. It is something to be seen, and the seeing happens only when the mind is free, free from division, free from belief, free from its own projections. Now, some of you may be thinking, but if I give up belief, won't life feel meaningless? Won't I be left empty, without hope? That fear is natural. But notice, when you let go of false things, there is always a moment of emptiness. If you stop clinging to a broken relationship, there is loneliness at first. If you give up an addiction, there is emptiness. But in that emptiness, if you do not run away, new life grows. Belief is like scaffolding. It props us up when we feel weak. But scaffolding is not the building. At some point, the scaffolding must come down for the true structure to stand on its own. If you can bear that emptiness, that silence, something real begins to flower. And here is the beauty. When the mind is free of projection, when it is truly silent, there is a different quality of living altogether. There is a simplicity, a natural kindness, not born of incentives, but of direct perception. Virtue, as Krishnamurti puts it, is simply facing the fact of what is. And in that facing, there is a state of bliss, not pleasure, not excitement, but a deep sense of harmony with life. So, the question is not, do you believe in God? That question belongs to the marketplace, to politics, to division. The real question is, can the mind be free enough to be silent, to see, to encounter reality without projection? That is the real religious mind. not a believing mind, but a silent, intelligent, free mind. Perhaps then, what we call God, or truth, or the eternal, is not something to be reached, believed in, or argued about. It is something that comes into being when the mind is free, when there is silence, when there is no seeking. It is discovered not through effort, not through dogma, but through a life of intelligence and freedom. So let me leave you with Krishnamurti's own words once more. Quote, "Therefore, God or truth or what you will is a thing that comes into being from moment to moment, and it happens only in a state of freedom and spontaneity, not when the mind is disciplined according to a pattern." End of quote. Pause with that for a moment. What does it mean for you? Not as an idea, but as a living reality. To meet life without belief, without projection, without escape. Perhaps in that very questioning, in that very silence, the eternal is already here. Thank you for listening. If today's message resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe to our channel so we can continue to inspire, serve, and add value to your life. Your support helps us spread Jiddu Krishnamurti's work and wisdom further into the world. Until we meet again, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.